Hey, what's up, everybody? Glad you could make it. Let me tell you something that just happened, something I never thought would be my life. Picture this. Me, sitting here alone, middle of the freaking night, phone in my hand, pulse racing like crazy. I'm staring at this text, reading it over and over, because it just blew my world apart. It was from my buddy, just 3 lines. Dude, you gotta see this. Sarah's at Gotham Lounge, and she ain't alone. Gotham Lounge. Man, I knew that place. That was our place. Sarah and me, back when things were real, back when we were actually together, laughing in sync. Before everything went sideways, before she started drifting, pulling away like I was poison. For a second, just a heartbeat, I almost trashed the message. Called it a joke, a mistake, anything but the truth. But deep down, something raw, some gut feeling wouldn't let it go. Keys. Gotta get my keys. Heart hammering against my ribs. I'm driving through empty New York streets. My head's a mess of broken memories. Her sudden distance, those quiet phone calls she'd take in the other room, nights she'd roll in hours late, saying nothing, just gone. I'd question myself, thought maybe I was just paranoid, too jealous. But this message, this was different. This felt real. And I was about to face it head on. The moment I walked into Gotham Lounge, I saw her. Sarah, my wife, the woman I'd loved for years, built my whole damn life around. And there she was, at the bar, laughing. Not just a polite chuckle, but throwing her head back, full-on laughing. Leaning in close to some guy I didn't recognize, her fingers touching his arm like it was nothing. Confident smirk on his face, the kind that screams, "Yeah, I already won." They weren't even trying to hide it. My feet felt glued to the floor, body went numb. But my mind was on fire. She laughed again at something he whispered, touched him lightly on the chest, right over his heart. That same casual, affectionate touch she hadn't given me in months. I could have stormed over there, demanded answers, made a scene. But I didn't. Instead, I pulled out my phone, took a picture. Not for revenge, not to use it against her later. Just to remember this moment. Because I knew right then and there, I'd never be the same again. I didn't say a word to her that night. Just turned around and walked out of that bar before she could even see me, before she had the chance to play pretend, act like it wasn't exactly what it was. Next morning, I was up early, sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a cold cup of coffee, waiting for her to waltz in like nothing had happened. And she did. Barely glanced at me. "Morning," she mumbled, pouring herself coffee like it was just another Tuesday. Jaw clenched tight. I slid my phone across the table. Hers buzzed just as she reached for her mug. She glanced at it, sighed, then finally looked down at my screen. Color drained out of her face. Eyes flicked up to mine, cold, calculating. Not guilty, not ashamed, just annoyed. "You were spying on me," she said flatly. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Spying? Is that what we're calling it now? My voice was steadier than I felt inside. "I was just seeing for myself what you'd already decided behind my back," She slammed her mug down way too hard. Exaggerated sigh, rolling her eyes like I was some kind of idiot. "You're being dramatic." The sheer nerve of her response almost sent me over the edge. "I caught you with another man, Sarah," I said, voice eerily calm. "All over him. And you're sitting here acting like I'm the problem." She crossed her arms, a bored look taking over her face. "You don't own me, Jake." Froze. The way she said it, like I was some possessive, controlling husband, like I was the one crossing some line. "I never said I did," I replied, voice quieter now, but deadlier. "But I thought we had respect. I thought we had something real." She exhaled through her nose, shaking her head like I was a kid throwing a tantrum in a supermarket. "You're overreacting," she muttered, brushing past me, grabbing her purse. Couldn't believe it. She wasn't even denying it. Wasn't apologizing. Just done with the conversation. I followed her to the door, hands shaking with rage I was trying to keep down. "What do you expect me to do, Sarah?" I asked, voice barely a whisper. She turned, arched a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "I don't know. Be a man about it," she said, lips curling into a cruel smirk. Then she walked out, just like that, like it was nothing, like I was nothing. I stood there, in the doorway, for what felt like hours, staring at the empty space where she'd just been. And that's when it hit me. She expected me to chase her. She expected me to be furious, to fight for her, to prove I was desperate to keep her. She expected the grand confrontation, the screaming matches, the raw emotion. She wanted me to break down, to beg her to choose me over him. She wanted to feel wanted, because in her twisted mind, as long as I was fighting, she was winning. But what happens when the game stops? What happens when there's no fight left? What happens when the man she thought would never leave just disappears? I took a slow, deep breath, and I made my decision. She wanted me to chase her. Fine, I was going to let her feel my absence. And that would be the start of her regret. I didn't argue, didn't scream, didn't beg. That's what she expected, what she wanted. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This whole affair, it wasn't about love, wasn't about passion. It was about power, about keeping me in this messed-up game where she made all the rules. So I decided not to play. That morning, after she left, I took my time, finished my coffee, staring at the empty seat across from me, feeling the weight of everything sink in. The betrayal, the humiliation, the sheer disrespect she'd shown me. Then I got up, grabbed my laptop, and started making plans. First thing, secure my finances. We had a joint account. Well, mostly joint. My salary had been feeding it for years. She had a paycheck, sure, but we both knew who carried the financial load in our marriage. Not anymore. I transferred my money into my personal account, leaving just enough for her not to notice right away. Didn't want to set off any alarms, not yet. Then, logged into all the bills. Rent for our Upper West Side apartment. Utilities. Credit cards. I removed myself from anything tied to her. If she wanted independence, she was about to get it, in the most brutal way possible. Clothes, personal documents, The few sentimental things I actually cared about, I packed. The rest, she could have it. By the time I was done packing, the sun had dipped below the skyline, casting long shadows across the apartment. Still no call, still no text. She still thought I'd react the way she expected. She had no idea that as of tonight, she'd already lost me. Next morning, I woke up early, feeling lighter than I had in months, moved through my routine with this weird sense of calm, brushing my teeth, getting dressed, making breakfast. But this time, there was no extra mug of coffee, no note left on the counter, no waiting for her to come back. I'd already booked a temporary place, furnished apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, just clean, quiet, and mine. I was gone before she even stirred in bed, and I turned off my phone. Let her notice, let her sit with it. By noon, I turned it back on. 6 missed calls, a bunch of texts. Casual at first, like she was just checking in, asking where I was, wondering if I'd left early for work. Last one even had a pet name attached, like nothing was wrong. I let them sit there, unread. Wasn't gonna give her the panic she wanted. I wanted her to stew. That evening, another voicemail. Debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. First few seconds were just background noise. Then her voice clipped, impatient. "Jake, seriously? Are you going to ignore me all day? Look, I don't know what kind of tantrum you're throwing, but you need to stop acting weird. Call me back." I laughed. Tantrum. That's how she saw it. Not as a consequence of her actions. Not as me reclaiming my dignity. Just a childish outburst. She still thought this was a game. I deleted the voicemail. Next morning, silence. No new calls. By noon, a few more messages, shorter, sharper. Day 2, frustration set in. She wasn't asking where I was anymore. She was demanding answers. By day 3, she was accusing me of being dramatic. Day 4, the first cracks appeared. She told me to stop ignoring her, said this was ridiculous, then, in the same breath, asked why I was doing this. She still didn't get it. On day 5, desperation hit. Messages came rapid fire. She needed to talk. She needed to understand. She didn't know what was happening. And there it was. Regret. She'd spent days thinking I'd come crawling back, that I'd fight for a place in her life. Now she was realizing I was actually gone. That's when the calls started again. I didn't answer. I let her feel it. At first, she'd enjoyed it, right? The space, the freedom, the thrill of doing whatever she wanted without worrying about me waiting at home. I pictured her laughing at my silence, rolling her eyes at my refusal to engage. She probably told herself I'd be back, that I was just sulking, playing hard to get. But as days turned into weeks, reality crept in. She started noticing the silence. No texts from me, no calls, no stupid little gifts I used to bring her home. Then the small inconveniences piled up. Fridge was emptier. Laundry sat untouched. The bills, those hit first. She had her own money, but I'd always been the one handling payments, keeping everything running smoothly. When the overdue notices started coming, she barely reacted. Until the internet got cut off. Then she panicked. 2 weeks passed. The messages changed again. First dismissive, then uncertain. Asking when, not if, I'd be back. She'd spent so long believing I'd always be there, never considering what would happen if I simply let go. The guy she'd thrown our marriage away for. He was already pulling away, canceling plans, replying later and later. She probably didn't understand why at first. She'd expected him to be everything I wasn't. Grass is always greener, right? But now she was alone, more alone than she'd expected to be. And the weight of that realization was sinking in. A month passed before I finally heard her voice again. Not through a call, not through a text. She showed up. I'd been expecting it. I hadn't moved far, just enough to disappear from her daily life, but not so far she couldn't find me when desperation finally took over. There was a knock at my door one evening, soft at first, then firmer. I let it sit, let her stand out there, waiting, stewing in her own nerves. Then finally I opened the door. There she was. Her hair wasn't as perfectly styled as usual, posture not as poised. There was a stiffness in her shoulders, a tension in her face I'd never seen before. For the first time in our entire relationship, she looked unsure. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed, waiting. She cleared her throat. "Can we talk?" I didn't respond right away, just studied her. The regret was there, flickering behind her eyes, the realization that the life she'd chosen wasn't nearly as thrilling as she'd expected, that I wasn't there to catch her when she fell, that the guy she'd betrayed me for had never been a replacement, just a distraction, that she'd gambled everything and lost. "Talk about what?" I finally asked. Her lips parted, then pressed together again. For a moment I thought she might break, spill out some desperate apology, tell me she'd made a mistake, but she didn't, because she wasn't ready to admit it. Not fully. Instead, she sighed. "You really just left?" I shrugged. "I thought that's what you wanted." She looked away, exhaling sharply. "I didn't think you'd actually—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "Never mind." I waited, but she didn't finish the thought, because she had nothing to say, nothing that would change anything. She'd already lost. She just hadn't fully processed it yet. She'd come here expecting control, expecting that seeing her, hearing her voice, would break me, that something inside me would still need to fix things. She still thought she had that power over me. She didn't, and she knew it now. I let the silence stretch, just long enough to make her uncomfortable. Then, finally, I spoke. "You should go." Her head snapped up. "What?" "I think we're done here." Her lips parted slightly, a flicker of shock crossing her face. She'd come here expecting to hold the reins, expecting something, and instead she got nothing. Just the same emptiness she'd left me with. For the first time in weeks, I saw something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Not arrogance, not defiance. Regret. Real, crushing regret. And it was too late. I stepped back and closed the door, and for the first time I felt free. She didn't leave right away. I stood on the other side of the door, listening, waiting. First, nothing. Then a faint shuffle, a slow exhale, a hesitation. I imagined her standing there, staring at the closed door, trying to piece together how things had slipped through her fingers. For the first time, she wasn't the one walking away. She had lost control, and that realization must have felt like poison in her veins. Finally, after what felt like forever, I heard her footsteps fade down the hall. The soft click of her heels against the floor. The reluctant sound of her leaving. And just like that, she was gone again. But this time it was different. This time, I was the one who had left her behind. I expected that to be the end of it. Maybe foolish to think one failed attempt would be enough to stop her. Because a week later, she tried again. Text started slow, cautious. "Hey." I ignored it. A few hours later. "How have you been?" I let it sit, unread. 2 days later, she finally tried something real. "I know I messed up. Can we just talk? Please." That last word, please, stood out. Not because I believed it was genuine, but because she had never expected to say it to me. I could picture it, her sitting on her bed, staring at her phone, debating whether to send it, wrestling with the unfamiliar feeling of being on the other side of the silence. She'd spent so long expecting me to fight for her, to chase her. Now she was the one waiting, and I wasn't answering. A few more days passed before she escalated. A call. I watched her name appear on the screen. Let it ring. Then silence. A minute later, a voicemail notification popped up. I waited a few hours before listening to it. Her voice was different this time. Not angry, not cold, just lost. "Jake, I don't even know what to say." Long pause. I miss you, okay? I miss us." Another hesitation. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I don't know. I just wanted to talk." She sighed, and for a second, I almost thought she was going to cry. But she didn't. Instead, she ended it with a whisper. "Call me back." Message ended. I sat there, phone in hand, expression unreadable. For a brief second, I actually felt something. Not hope, not sadness, just the faintest, fleeting echo of what could have been. But it was gone before I could even grasp it, because I knew better. This wasn't about love. This wasn't about realizing she'd made a mistake. This was about regret, about fear, about knowing she'd lost something she thought she could replace, only to find out she couldn't. She wanted me to come back, not because she had changed, but because she missed what I had given her. And I wasn't that man anymore. She didn't stop trying. A few days later, I ran into a mutual friend, someone who'd been close to both of us before everything fell apart. I knew right away they'd seen her recently. They hesitated, then finally said, "She's not doing great." I shrugged. "That's not my problem." "I know," they said quickly. I think she regrets it. All of it." I let out a quiet laugh, shaking my head. Regret doesn't mean anything if you only feel it when it's too late. They didn't argue. They knew I was right. And I think deep down she knew it too. Another call, another voicemail, this one more desperate. "I just don't understand, Jake." Her voice was shaky, edged with frustration. "How can you just walk away like this?" After everything. I could hear the emotion bubbling beneath her words. The anger. The disbelief. Because she still didn't understand. She still thought I owed her something. But she'd walked away from me long before I ever returned the favor. She'd gambled everything, expecting I'd be waiting when she was ready to come back. Now she was standing in the wreckage of her choices, realizing there was no way to fix what she'd broken. And she hated it. She hated that I wasn't playing my part, that I wasn't letting her rewrite the ending, that I wasn't giving her the chance to win me back, so I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I had already said everything the night I walked away. And she had ignored it. Now she would have to live with the silence, because that silence, that was my answer. And it drove her mad. I could feel it in the way her messages became more erratic, more emotional, more raw. She'd started with arrogance, then came confusion, then anger. Now she was unraveling. I ignored every call, every text. Each one was another desperate attempt to claw her way back into my life, to pull me into an argument, to force a reaction. She didn't want an apology. She wanted control. But I had taken that away from her, and without it, she was falling apart. 2 months. That's how long it took for her to truly break. First, she tried to play it cool, went out with friends, plastered on a smile, posted pictures like nothing had changed, like she'd moved on. But people talk, and I started hearing things. She wasn't doing as well as she wanted everyone to believe. Her finances were a mess. She'd underestimated how much I'd carried us financially, how much of our life had depended on my stability. She wasn't going out as much, wasn't keeping up appearances. And worst of all, the guy she'd thrown everything away for had already disappeared. He'd never wanted more than a thrill. And now that the excitement was gone, so was he. She'd gambled everything for him, and she had lost. Then came the night I knew she'd hit rock bottom. I'd just gotten home from work, settling into the new life I'd built. A life where I wasn't constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. A life where I could breathe again. Then a knock at the door. I already knew who it was before I even stood up. For a second, I debated not answering, letting her stand there waiting just like before. But some part of me wanted to see her face one last time, so I opened the door. And there she was. She looked nothing like the woman who had once stood in front of me, so full of arrogance, so sure of herself. Her makeup was uneven, like she'd done it in a rush. Her clothes were nice, but not put together the way she usually liked. Her hair was slightly messy, as if she'd been running her hands through it too much. But it was her eyes that told me everything. They weren't hard anymore, they weren't full of pride, they were empty. She'd spent so much time pretending she was fine, convincing herself she'd made the right decision. Now she knew the truth. She'd destroyed something she could never get back. She swallowed hard, shifting on her feet. "Can I come in?" "No." The word left my mouth before I could even think about it. She blinked, like she hadn't expected that, like she still thought she could walk back into my life with just a conversation. She forced a small smile. "Come on, Jake. Just for a minute." I shook my head. "There's nothing left to say?" Her smile faltered. Her mask cracked. "I miss you," she whispered. "I miss us." There it was, the confession she'd been holding back, the regret that had been eating her alive. If she'd said those words months ago, maybe they would have mattered. Maybe I would have let them in. But now they were just empty words. I leaned against the doorframe, studying her, letting the silence stretch between us. She was waiting for me to give in, to let her back in, to give her the satisfaction of knowing she still mattered. Instead, I sighed. "I don't think you miss me." Her brows furrowed. "What?" I shook my head. "I think you miss what I gave you, the security, the stability, the certainty that no matter what you did, I would always be there." Her mouth opened slightly, like she wanted to argue. But she didn't, because she knew I was right. She had never missed me. She had missed the comfort of having me. And now that it was gone, she was lost. She let out a shaky breath. "Can't we at least?" "No." I didn't let her finish, because there was no "at least," no second chance, no fixing what she had broken. Her eyes shimmered just for a second, then finally she nodded. She took a step back, swallowing hard, gripping the strap of her purse like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Then she turned and walked away. And this time, I didn't watch her go. I just closed the door. And I didn't look back.